Welcome to the Four Rooms podcast, where we explore the four rooms of entrepreneurship: health, wealth, scale, and relationships. Each episode is dedicated to opening new doors and uncovering insights that empower you to design your entrepreneurial journey to be both lucrative and fulfilling. And now, your hosts, Amber Spears and Brett Kaufman.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another podcast, the Four Rooms podcast. I am your co-host, Brett Kaufman, and I am here with Justin Maxwell from Big Life Financials, and we're going to be talking about many things in this episode, but some key things, and especially about how to keep more of your hard-earned money and how to legally save a lot of money on taxes. So Justin, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Brett. I really appreciate this opportunity. I'm glad that we have the chance to speak.
Absolutely. So this morning at our LA Intensive, there's about 50 to 65 people that are here. You blew everyone's mind in the room. For people that weren't there, can you share a little bit about like what you talked about?
Yeah, so I focused on what happens with business owners is you get really good at making money. You're really productive, you're really profitable, things are going well. Obviously, there's always going to be headaches and things you're chasing, but when you compare yourself to the average American or the average person in this world, you're making way more money than anyone would even dream of having in a lot of cases. But just because you're good at making money doesn't mean you're actually good at keeping it and actually building wealth. And there's learning how to do that is just like any skill. Once you learn how to do it and once you put systems in place, it becomes natural. It's not as clunky and everything goes a lot better. And what I was really focused on early on today was that the first step is you get a great team and you make your team communicate, collaborate, and you do that consistently. And that's the key is you have great professionals in your life probably already, but they probably aren't talking to each other. And when you can get them all talking and collaborating, magic starts to happen. And that's the way that family offices are built. They want professionals in the same room talking and collaborating. And so you aren't at the level of family office likely yet, but you can still mimic that environment of talking, communicating, collaborating amongst your professionals.
And see, that's so important. And we're going to get into that in a little bit about the team people that you need, because when you were talking, I have an advisor and I have someone that does my taxes, but they don't communicate. I mean, I think I've emailed intro them a few times, but they're not regularly checking in. So I'm very excited for you to walk through that org chart that you showed us. Yeah. Before we get into this, I don't believe you just were born a tax savant on how to save money. How did you fall into this?
My story is probably not going to, it's going to, when I'm going to say this is not going to, you're going to be like, well, that doesn't sound right. Okay. So I was a physical education teacher.
Really?
Yeah. I wanted to be a college professor. I was getting my master's degree and I discovered in my master's degree process that I didn't like doing research at that. Like I love reading research. I love looking at data, but doing the research projects was not something I enjoyed doing. So I knew then that I had put myself in a pigeonhole of, I don't really have a lot of flexibility here. So I finished my master's and I taught, but I knew that I wasn't going to teach forever. I had been in school for 7 years and I knew I was married. So I couldn't go back to my wife and say, well, I'm going to go back to school and explore something else to do because this isn't right. So I taught. And during that teaching process, I was on a journey to find what I was going to do next. And I happened to hear Garrett Gunderson speak, I think he's been a part of the Four Rooms community in the past. And the light bulb that went off in my head, it was almost like a spiritual connection piece of, I don't know why I'd blocked business, finance, taxes out of my life because I'm really great at money. I love looking at data. I love researching things. But to me, I was on this trajectory of, I love sports. I love coaching. I love this. And I'm going to go down this path and I'm going to pursue it. And he unlocked that for me. And so that speech unlocked my ability to start pursuing that. And it led me to where I am today. But it took me a long time. It wasn't just like I stopped working and stopped teaching. Sure. I opened myself up to that possibility and it led me down this road.
So you say this speech, what did he cover in that speech?
So the speech for Garrett, the way he likes to focus on just like your human life value, who you are as a person, that you don't need corporations, you don't need Wall Street, you don't need your job to be you can create your own value in this world. And I never had believed that before. like I always had been reliant on an employer to do it or something else. And not saying that's a wrong or bad thing, but that was my mindset. It was very much traditional, go to school, get a job, and then retire mindset. But when he unlocked that I am the creator of my value and that it has unlimited potential and that money unlocks that, because I grew up in a very middle-class family. I can remember shaming. I went to visited a church once in a very rich part of Utah in Park City where a lot of wealthy individuals reside. And they were talking about like, we went to this beach and we owned all this stuff. And they were asking questions in the Sunday school class around, what do you do? That's fun, exciting. And I just remember thinking like, man, they are so snobby and over the top. And like, I had this connection with wealth that was evil, or they didn't deserve it, or people aren't nice when they're wealthy. And so I had completely blocked off all wealth, all money things from my mind. And I was just going to be a middle-class person that was delivering value, but in a way that was controlled by someone else. So when he spoke, it unlocked something to me that I'd never had happen before.
Wow. So that was the unlocking part. When did it, I guess, did you fully, okay, let me figure out the better way of phrasing this. So Garrett was the first time that I knew identity was unlocked for you. When did you fully internalize it and say, I'm committed to this path of being this way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when I find something that is passionate about to me, I become obsessed with it. Like podcasts, books, courses, etc.
Yeah.
So 2017, I think, is when I heard Garrett speak. Maybe early 2018, but somewhere in that time frame.
Was that a conference or?
Yeah, I was at a real estate investing conference because I was trying to find something else to do. So I was already in the process of looking for something else. I just happened to attend this conference. He spoke at it, and that was it. But so I went into a very deep learning method from 2017 to 19, where I learned a lot more of just like self-education around what can I do? What do I think is possible? How can I actually step even further into this idea of not only, because I was looking for another job previously, but now I was looking for like, I'm going to go do this on my own. I'm not going to another employer. I'm going to do it then. So I got connected with Derek, who's my business partner, and he's at this event here. And the reason I got connected to him is because I was buying a life insurance policy from him. And I was on the phone with him. It was a great process. And then I was just sitting at my kitchen table one day and I thought, how did Derek get there? Like, what qualifications do you have to have? Like, how did he become that? And so I just called him, and that was the initiation of that was what sparked what we've created at Big Life Financial. I started doing calls for him, and then because I'm so obsessed with learning, like I started learning everything about every component of taxes and how do we manipulate all this stuff and how do we create this. So my background is fully centered on this. That's where it came from, is just learning on my own, which is not what people I think would like to hear, because it's like, oh, you're not educated in this. But that's where it's the who, not how.
Sure,
and so the who's in my group actually have the licenses. I just have the connection pieces to integrate all of these pieces, from the accounting to how do we scale and exit our business to how do we protect, how do we wealth manage. And I'm the interlining thread between all of those. So I understand all of those very deeply, but I don't execute them. I have the who's to help me do that.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, because you don't need to have every single expertise. Like you said, you just know how to distribute it. Yeah. So for those that have no idea what Big Life Financial is, describe it to them.
Yeah, so we're a firm that's unlike any other financial firm that I know of. I'm sure there's someone out there, but our firm is, think of us like an umbrella. And under that umbrella, we have tax planning and strategy. We have wealth management. We have protection services, insurance, estate planning, legal protection. And then we have business asset, where we help people acquire and scale through acquisition or exit their businesses in a manner that's in alignment with all those other areas as well, like integrating those. So we are what I would call as a fractional family office, is a good way to describe that, where we're giving fractional family or family office level services, but at a price that the normal entrepreneur, business owner can actually afford to have.
And we're very lucky that the audience that we have here is at all different wealth levels. But for someone that is like, okay, I know the term what family office is, but can you describe what family office is to that person's like, it really is this thing?
So think a $200 million net worth and they're hiring financial professionals that only work for them. So my accountant doesn't have any other clients. They're my accountant. My investment advisor doesn't have any other clients. They only work for us and my family. So the whole directive of that family office group, from the accounting to the legal to the advising to the insurance, is to grow and protect the family's wealth.
Yeah.
Usually it costs multiple millions of dollars a year to have that in place. And so most people can't afford that, and they probably couldn't get the value out of that even if they could afford it. That's why you don't see them until the 100 million, 200 million spot, because now they can actually afford it and they'll get the value out of it, where they're actually going to produce more than their cost.
So do you feel like most people are overpaying? Most people that don't really work with you or know about the system of saving money on taxes, do you feel like they're overpaying in their taxes?
So far, we've done hundreds. We'll probably hit thousands of reviews here shortly. Tax reviews where we do side-by-side comparisons of here's how you're filing your taxes now, and here's how we would do it if we were preparing. We have yet to have a client where we haven't saved them something.
Wow, that's
so
crazy.
That's every one that we've ever done. So I'm sure there's someone out there, because we're not doing anything that's secret.
Yeah.
It just is that the way I like to view this is helpful, I think, is 95% of Americans don't need any tax planning or strategy. So if most of the Americans don't need that, most accountants aren't, that's who their clients are. So if most accountants are centered on helping 95% of the people, you're not 95% of the people. And so if you have one, which is a pretty likelihood that you have that, they can't service you well. Doesn't mean they're crappy at their job. Yeah. It just means that they're not focused on that. So there's that 5%, there's other accountants out there that can produce the results that we produce. It's just that we haven't found them yet.
So for that 95%, what income level are they roughly at?
Yeah, anything I'd say less than even just 100 grand is anything less than 100 grand is what most accountants can do a really good job at helping.
So downstairs when you were presenting, you broke down, it was like 3 levels of income and like common, this one Patrick was asking that question.
Yeah.
And he was asking different strategies you can implement. So can you give me that first tier? Let's say making 101, I think you said to 200.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah, so 101 to 200 is you are, so let me step back. Sure. I really probably should have said this earlier, and I think people need to know this. Tax strategy and planning only happens if you do it proactively.
Okay.
So you can't just wait till January or December and say, okay, now what do I do? What things do I implement? Like sure. It's a process throughout the year. So whatever level of income you're at, whether you're at 100,000 or 1 million, you still are proactively doing it. Now the strategies and the amount that's available for you is a lot more for the 1 million person, but it's still the same processes. I have a tax team and I do it proactively. And then I can implement. If you just do those first two things, everything else will ripple on its own behind it. So the team and the proactiveness will cause you to do the things I'm about to describe. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So the basic things for just someone that's $100,000 of income is you just make sure that you have a good salary distribution split. So if you pay too much of yourself in salary, you're going to be paying self-employment tax, which means you're paying 15% on every dollar that you pay yourself a salary for. So the more you can turn into a distribution or a owner's draw is another language for that, the more you'll save in taxes. Now, the IRS doesn't let you do all owner's draw. Like you have to, there's a balancing act there's a process to it. Like it's not something simple, but your accountant should be able to help you do that. And if they don't, if they're saying, well, you just do all salary, you're paying too much in taxes. And that's a cue that I need to level up one person to the next level. Because that's as simple of a strategy that you could have. Like we just barely did someone, like he's making 600 grand and he took all 600 grand in salary. And he's like 45 years old. So he's been in business since he was 25. He's a chiropractor. Obviously he wasn't making that much money the entire time, but his entire career, he's been paying 15% extra on a whole bunch of his money. And like, it's just the simplest of switches.
And that's introducing an S Corp. Is there certain things?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be an S Corp is the way you can do that, but it doesn't have to be an S Corp. Like the S Corp is the usual mechanism for doing that, but you don't have to have an S Corp to do that.
If you're looking to get even more from the Four Rooms podcast, you don't want to miss our exclusive newsletter. This is your personal invitation to join a community of like-minded entrepreneurs who are all about balancing health, wealth, scale, and relationships. Each week, we're going to bring you additional insights, tips, early announcements, and other information that we just can't fit into this podcast episode. Plus, it's a great way to keep the conversation going and ensure you never miss a beat in your entrepreneurial journey. It's easy to subscribe. Just visit fourroomsmastermind.com, scroll to the bottom of the page, and enter your email. That's fourroomsmastermind.com, and just enter your email. We promise to keep things light, keep your inbox interesting, informative, and fun. Join the Four Rooms community today, and let's grow together.
Now, you're the expert, clearly. Does it vary? Like, what is the max amount of owner draw you could take?
Yeah, so that gets really dependent. Basically, the way I would describe it as is if you were going to hire someone that was going to replace you for whatever, like there's a lot of doctors in this community or people in the medical space or even like marketing folks. Obviously, your skill is high, so you have high volume. But just think of like if you were going to replace yourself on a base level, how much would you pay someone to replace you? That's the salary you pay. And then usually anything above that can be distributed. Not always. There's some nuance there, but that's a good way to think of it. As a base level, you can do, this is very broad, but 2/3 distribution, 1/3 salary.
Oh, wow. Okay. This is very helpful. So then the distribution part, does that get kicked in post the new year, or do you just pay yourself out quarterly on the distributions?
Yeah, you just will set up, think of distributions as profitability in the company. So whenever you have profitability and you could set up like you want to make this systematic. So you wouldn't just want to go in and, well, I'm going to pull money out whenever I want, but it could be on a monthly draw, or it could be a quarterly draw, or it could be an annual draw. You just decide with your accountant, but you set up some sort of rhythm to it. Don't just do it half-heartedly.
Yeah, sure.
Because that's where you can, because when you do it half-heartedly, it starts to get into, are you commingling personal and business? Because the reason you're probably doing it half-heartedly is because you're going to grab money because you need the money.
Yeah.
Versus setting up a rhythm to it.
Okay, that makes sense. So now let's say the person's making 201 to, was it $500,000? Would that be that second bracket?
Yeah, that's a good bracket. The next bracket that you're going to add in, that was just one of the ones in the basic one. The other ones are just do the Augusta rule, rent out your house, and then make sure if you have children, try and get them working in the business and pay your children in the business.
So those not as familiar with the Augusta rule, you're renting out. Can you explain?
Yep. The Augusta rule comes from Augusta, Georgia, which is where the Masters is played. There was a senator there that wanted to rent out his property, and he didn't want to have to pay income tax on it. So because he had power and leadership, he was able to pass a rule inside the tax code that every American can rent out their home for 14 days a year. And any income that you earn in those 14 days, you don't have to pay income tax. So if you made $1 million in those 14 days, you don't pay any income tax on that $1 million.
And you can rent it out to yourself?
Yeah, you can rent it out to anyone. But so the way it works is a business strategy, because that's the rule.
Yeah.
The way that you leverage it as a business strategy is you rent your personal residence to your business.
Oh.
So everyone always says the Augusta rule is for business, but it's actually for every American. Anyone can do it. Like if I'm not a business owner, I can rent out my personal house. And any money I earn in that, I don't pay income tax on.
And is that something you just tell your accountant, hey, from this 2 weeks, I'm going to do it, and so therefore you have it marked? How do you do it legally? Yeah.
So if you're going to do this as a business owner, you're going to have a business purpose for the rental. You're going to want to get comparables of like, what is my square footage? What is the niceness of my home? You can look at other like houses on Airbnb or VRBO for comparables, but you also can look into like hotel spaces and things or wedding venue type spaces as well. But you get comparables, and then the business is going to write a check for whatever number you arrive at. They'll write a check to you personally because they're renting it from you. And then the business is going to host a meeting or do something, an event or something at your house, and just take pictures and document that it actually happened, and you'll be just fine. As long as it has a business purpose to it.
That's fascinating.
You'll be able to do it. So if you're really strategic, because rent prices vary depending on where you're at in time of year. So if there's big events in your area on specific weekends, maybe consider doing it then when you can get a higher price and you'll be able to save more taxes, or you could just do the base level and not care about it as much. And then people that are in higher volume areas or bigger areas can get higher prices than someone that's in Mobile, Alabama. Doesn't like, there's not, maybe I'm downgrading Mobile a little bit, but I don't know if there's a lot going on in Mobile that would raise prices. So it's going to vary where you are in the country is what I'm trying to say. Like it's no set number. I can just choose
Makes
this
sense.
price. It's dependent upon where you're at.
Like we're in Pasadena, the Rose Bowl gets played here every single year. So
Right.
obviously.
Yeah. So if you did it Rose Bowl weekend, like did a few days in a row, like you could have a pretty high number for that time and you'd be able to save more taxes because of that. And the value behind that is you're bringing money into your household income tax free. So that's whatever your tax bracket is or whatever your tax bracket is at that point. So if you're a 37% tax bracket person, you're saving 37 cents. So instead of you having to live off of 77 cents or 73 cents, you get all 100 of them to spend. So your spending power just went up a little bit, or your investing power went up a little bit because you have more money available that isn't going to the government.
Do you have to have the checks hit the account as payment during those 14 days?
Yeah, you want to make it just like, you have to treat it like, okay, if I was going to go to a hotel, when would they expect me to have the payment there? So you just have to treat it like the market.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So whatever the expectation of the market is, that's the way you have to treat yourself.
Cool. All right, so now we're moving to the other bracket, that 201 half a mil.
You're starting to look at, okay, I have some good income, but now if I can use this income to go buy assets, what assets can I purchase that will simultaneously save me taxes? And we call these tax smart investments. Not every asset class has a tax piece connected to it, but one that people are really familiar with is real estate often. When you buy real estate, just because you bought it, you get to depreciate it. And because you get to depreciate it, all passive income and rental income that you get from that real estate, you don't have to pay taxes on oftentimes. Now, sometimes that's not the case, but you still you'll save taxes in some manner on that income at some level. That's a tax smart investment. So can we go buy some real estate potentially to start taking part of that? But there's other asset classes. The energy sector has a ton of tax credits or tax deductions built into them. So that's oil, natural gas, wind, solar, even farms at times can have it. So purchasing both agricultural farms and like livestock farms can both create these deductions within them. Now, finding them and doing the due diligence and finding out if this is the right investment for you requires you to have a member of your team that actually is assessing that with you. And so that's why the team aspect is so important, because accountants don't have this skill set they're not going to bring these to you. And so a whole swath of people in our country could be investing, which is growing their wealth and saving taxes simultaneously, but they're not taking advantage of it because they don't have someone on their team to help them do it.
Yeah.
The danger here is that you hear this and you're like, well, I'm going to go pursue this on my own. Just tread carefully, because just because there's a tax break there doesn't mean the investment's going to work. Sure. So you have to be really deliberate around who you're investing with. And it's like you get the tax break whether or not it works or not for you. So just I always invite people, just like find someone that you start to trust, start to work with them, experience them, like see what they're bringing to you. Are you able to bring me some of these things? Like, do you have these available? If they don't, then just find some, there's plenty of people that can bring you what I just described to you, where it's going to be a good investment. There's always a chance of risk in any investment, but the chance of risk is going to go down because it's had due diligence done. There's been some vetting. They have a history. They've been around for a long time. They do multiple a year or whatever it is. There's someone out there in this world that I know. There's plenty of agents and advisors out there that can bring you those types of opportunities.
When you first started your speech, which I loved how you opened it this morning, you were mentioning all these different things like invest in the dollar, 401k. And there's a lot of people here, and I also love what you transition to, they're so good at making active money.
Yeah.
This side they're not as good at. So invest in your 401k for a tax break is such a common thing that you're often heard unless you're super educated on it. What is your opinion on doing that?
Yeah. So for business owners, I don't like it.
Why?
It's super expensive. Qualified 401k specifically are extremely expensive to operate as a company, because not only do they have a lot of management fees to have them as like a platform or a third-party administrator, but then you have to offer it to all your employees. And I'm not saying you shouldn't offer benefits to your employees or help them, but now that's money that because usually the drive to get a 401k is I want to save for retirement.
Yeah.
For yourself. But if you're having to also then pay money to your employees, you're hampering what you could have paid to yourself by just doing it another way. Okay. So it's going to drag. So the fees associated with the management of just having it, what I just mentioned, it's it's gone for me. The fact that you're paying your employees, and then there's usually a management fee on top of that for the assets in there. So like what mutual funds are in there. So those three things will pull whatever rate of return you have down. And I've done lots of numbers and scenarios around this. Like it doesn't take much to take an 8% return down to a 2 to 3% return inside of, just because it's inside the 401k.
Yeah.
Because of all that, all the fees and because you're paying your employees, where you would never do a 401k if you're going to get a 2% return. But oftentimes for business owners, that's the result.
What about the business owner that has like W-9s or contractors, so they're not paying a 401k to their team?
Yeah, so you'll just take out that middle one, where you're paying employees, but you still have the management fee of it, and you still have the advisor fee of the mutual funds. And then the last reason I don't like them is they limit what you can invest in. So it's a select chunk of investments. And most of the business owners I like, or not I like, but that I know most of the business I know like to have a little bit more say in what's being invested in. Like they like to not just set it and forget it and hope that I'm going to stick in this mutual fund and it's going to go up, but they want to have a little bit more like, what is that company I'm investing in? How do they operate? What are their values? That type of level. And you don't have that flexibility in a 401k.
Yeah. And see, that's a shift in mindset, because it's like, oh, I'm getting the tax write-off. Why wouldn't I do that? But you're saying, look at more the long-term game. Once you understand, there's other levels you can invest into.
Yeah. So that's one level. And then the worst thing I hate about it is it delays your taxes. All you're doing is you're waiting. You're not paying them today. You're going to pay them when you pull it out. But if you're planning right, you should have more income at 65, not less. And if you have more income at 65, or whatever age you choose to do that, 65 is just the common one, you're probably going to be paying either the same tax that you were going to pay today then, or it'll be higher because we're in the future and the United States government is $33 trillion in debt and they had to raise taxes to reduce it. So now you're paying an even higher tax bracket. The only reason 401ks are attractive and so pushed is, again, 95% of Americans are middle class. And middle class people oftentimes will, like they're in this tax bracket now, but they're going to end here. But again, if they're planning well, they should also be in a higher tax bracket. If you're choosing to be in a lower tax bracket, you're choosing to live a less life. Your lifestyle is going to be less. Like that's the only thing that's happening. So you're pigeonholing yourself into a scarcity bucket, which I don't like. So those are the reasons I'm not a big fan of 401ks.
It makes sense too, especially because like, are you doing the Augusta rule, the other things that you talked about? Because like you said, you might save that tax money on taxes that you would save on the 401k anyways.
Right. Correct. Yeah. And the way I like to view it, if you want to do a qualified plan and maybe you do want to offer it to your employees, like maybe that is something you actually truly want to give them as like, they're middle class, they need to be saving, they're not going to save without me, and I want them to have something for the future, then maybe that's the last thing we do. We do a qualified plan last is like, yeah, I'll save a little bit now. I'm okay with what's going to happen in the future. It's fine with me, but I'm getting some other dollars invested and saved for myself, and I'm offering my employees something really good.
So there is so much that we could go into. Unfortunately, I know we're coming close to an end. So I want you to tell the person that real quickly, I know probably harder in like a minute, but break down that org chart. Why are you so effective? Because you have all these different people underneath of you that you work with. Like, break that down for the listener.
Yeah. So I want them to view their wealth team like they do their business team. Like they have organizations, they have departments that have specific tasks and specific jobs, but those organizations still talk to each other. Like the leadership team comes together for meetings and they're collaborating and coordinating. So view your wealth team in that exact same manner. So you have a tax department, which is not just made up of your accountant, it's made up of that registered investment advisor and all the people there's tax attorneys and all sorts of people on there. Then you have your wealth management. Again, it's not just one advisor, it's a group of wealth managers. You have your protection team. Again, it's a group of people. And then your exit and scaling and mergers acquisition team. And then the leadership team will meet with you 3 to 4 times a year. And just doing that, implementing that structure will have ripples of giving you the permission to start reaching wealth that you never thought possible.
And like Jeff Sands, who you brought on stage to talk about his experience, he was like, there's so much I can't even talk about in this moment because of how like amazing you've done. Just it's complicated. So for people that want to follow you and learn more about you and how you can help them save money on taxes and help build out their wealth, where should they go to do that?
Yeah, there's 2 places I think that it can be really beneficial. I post a lot on LinkedIn, And then I also have a YouTube channel that I post fairly frequently called The Wealth Reserve.
Nice.
The Wealth Preserve. Sorry, no, I messed it up. Max Wealth. So it's a play on my name, Max Wealth Preserve at YouTube. And you can look it up or just Google Justin Maxwell. There's a baseball player that has my name, but my goal is to be when people Google Justin Maxwell, he'll no longer be there. So,
or you play baseball as well.
Or I play baseball.
And
Yeah, I played baseball in the past, but not at the level that gentleman did. So,
and last question, I know you're here. This is your first event with us. You're downstairs with about 50 to 65 amazing, all 7 to 10 figure entrepreneurs. For someone that's like interested in coming and doesn't know anything about us, how would you describe your experience?
So I attend a lot of business owner events, and the unique thing here is that there's a culture centered on it's centered on kindness. Like people are kind to each other, and it makes it easy to share. Everyone is talking to you. Like there's a lot of collaboration. Like we did a thing yesterday where business owners were sharing some pretty vulnerable parts of their business and saying like, this is going wrong right now. How can you help me? And at least my group was extremely like, let's just try this. Have you tried this? And it was very empathetic and just like everyone wants to help build each other up, which isn't always the case in business owner groups because sometimes there's some competition or there's some posturing that goes on. My business is bigger than your business, or there's more of like, it feels salesy, like everyone's trying to sell to each other and it just doesn't flow well. That's not the case. Everything I just said doesn't exist here. And it's very just a positive, uplifting environment.
Well, that makes us feel very good. Thank you. We appreciate you coming to join us.
Yeah. Thank you for the opportunity, Brett.
Absolutely. So that was our episode with Justin Maxwell. My name is Brett Kaufman. I am the co-host of 4 Rooms podcast. And most importantly, you are only one connection away. So thank you so much for being with us. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
As we wrap up today's episode, we have something special just for you. If you've been inspired by what we've explored today and you're ready to take your learning to the next level, then our 4 Rooms Mastermind live event is the perfect next step. And because you're a part of our podcast family, we're offering an exclusive 10% discount on your registration when you apply and are accepted. This is your chance. It's your chance to build relationships with other ambitious entrepreneurs like yourself, to dive deeper into the 4 rooms of entrepreneurship, and to connect with experts who can truly help accelerate your growth. Simply follow the event link in the description of this episode and use the promo code 4rooms10. That's FOURROOMS10 on your application to claim this opportunity. This offer is subject to application approval and it's limited, so don't wait too long to make your decision. Join us and transform your journey with the insights and networking that only our live events can offer. Thank you for tuning in today. We look forward to seeing you at the event and, of course, right back here next time on the 4 Rooms podcast. Until then, keep balancing and keep growing.